Finally, I have been waiting all week to talk to you guys about this one because I don't know if you guys heard, but late last month, the first Western tourist stepped foot inside North Korea since they shut their borders over half a decade ago. And this was a huge deal for me because remember, I promised you guys that once I hit 1 million subscribers on YouTube, I too was gonna go. But when I was told that I could be part of the first group to go in over 5 years, I said, screw it. I don't even care if we haven't hit 1 mil yet. This would be too insane of an opportunity to miss out on, especially because I was in this little exclusive group chat, so exclusive in fact, that it wasn't even made public. But as you, I guess, can tell, since I haven't been there, long story short, just literally hours before I had to kind of make my final decision and lock in, I was told that if I went to North Korea, my current US visa would be cancelled. And to get a new one, it could take not just months, but potentially up to a year, maybe even more. Because once you got that North Korea stamp on your passport, North Korea, America, doesn't really work together. So ultimately, I chose America. So, but even though I couldn't personally be there yet, we still found a way to get boots on the ground.
This is the German travel guy, the new foreign correspondent of the News Daddy Empire. And guys, we have made it to North Korea.
No borders are too secure for the News Daddy Empire. But here's where things get crazy because Luca gets a whole bunch of juicy information for us, which we'll go through. So I decide I make a TikTok video about it. It gets over 10 million views. And then didn't really think too much about it after that. But then I get a message from Luca. Bro, I think we just closed the North Korean borders. Maybe Kim watched your video and he was like, nope. That's it. And then he sends me a screenshot from this article that reads, the development came after a German tourist, he was the only German on there, who visited Rason in late February told Western media he was surprised that tour guides did not try and hide the country's poverty. Oh no. I can't even tell you how much my heart was pounding when I was reading this. So I go online to, check it out, see if it was true. And yes, it is. North Korea has in fact shut their borders again. But, and hear me out on this one. Upon further research, I truly don't believe that we, or let me rephrase that, at least I wasn't the reason. I have other theories. But before we get into that, let me show you, the kind of stuff that Luca saw. Because it's pretty wild, I'm not gonna lie.
The North Koreans are very interested in us. So we are being filmed with the camera, which is amazing. So maybe we end up on North Korean television. Imagine, that would be cool.
No, with all of that getting cracking, oh geez, should we get out the whip while talking about North Korea? Is that like one of those things you look back on and you're like, oh, I didn't think about that in the moment. Alex? Okay. I'm gonna give Alex 2 versions. Let's put this all on Alex. I'm sorry, he's probably hating me right now. I'm gonna give you 2 versions, Alex. I'm gonna give you the whip one, and I'm not gonna give you the whip one. And Alex is gonna choose whether we use the whip in this video or not, all right? Version 1. So, make sure you subscribe so we actually hit 1 million, and let's get cracking!
So you have chosen death.
Okay, so let's run you through this because spoiler, it gets so crazy that one of the guys on the tour actually showed North Koreans brain rot content. That could be a first in history. So let's start from the beginning. First of all, even 5 years later, North Koreans are still like super tough on COVID. Luca said that they disinfected and desanitized all of his belongings before he could even enter at customs, and that roughly 80% of them still wear masks till this day, even outside, which, really makes you wonder since, let's be honest, they shut their borders down because of COVID, and no one actually knows the truth of it, but how hard did COVID hit them? The whole world panicked, but how did it go down in North Korea? We may never know. But these are like just little interesting breadcrumbs to be like, huh. Interesting. And actually, this is a really important part to remember. It comes back later. Oh, another huge surprise that he spoke about was all of the apps they now have for their phones. Those who have phones. Because remember, for ages in North Korea, if you wanted to download an app, you would have to get it from the App Store. And the App Store is not an app. It's an actual store. It's a physical store. You would literally have to go to this little shop and then ask them to download the approved apps on your phone. That's how you'd get it. The App Store. But considering how many apps she seems to have had on her phone, yes, this is all exclusive, never seen before content. I mean, she's either made multiple trips to the App Store or their app store is now virtual. Luca said that they have things now like delivery apps and even their own version of popular Western games. So the footage that they got was like, this one looks like a North Korean PUBG, I guess. Oh, and this one goes crazy. There is a North Korean Clash of Clans. Just that alone existing in 2025 is bizarre enough.
They have GTA 6 yet?
Oh, and apparently they've even found ways to send messages to each other through in-game chat systems. Because remember, there's no such thing as social media in North Korea, which it's kind of like a hard thing to even wrap your head around. What does this society look like without social media now? I mean, for anyone under the age of like 20, I don't think it's even possible to think about that. Luca also said that one of the guys on the tour even downloaded a bunch of like brain rot TikToks before entering North Korea, because remember, no internet there. And then he started showing it to the North Koreans. And like this was like Subway Surfer at the bottom, AI generated level brain rot. Crazy. And you know what's wild? They actually loved it. She laughed multiple times. Oh, and on the point of there being no internet for tourists and arguably maybe even citizens, Luca has been to 193 countries now. And he said that North Korea was the only one where a single Wi-Fi network didn't pop up the entire time. How weird would that be? I've been in some wild places and there's been Wi-Fi. North Korea, not a single one. Oh, but what he did say, and this actually I haven't said before, at one point they were really close on that bus to the Chinese border, and he got 1 bar of signal on his mobile data, and he went live from North Korea on Instagram. And like, it was about like 10 seconds, he said, but you wonder, has there ever been a live stream on Instagram from inside North Korea before? Because that might have been the first one. Another thing that he mentioned was the complete absence of advertisements. Think about that. I mean, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around as like a Westerner where every moment of our lives is spent getting bombarded with advertisements. Oh, and sorry, this is completely off topic, but I just feel like I need to vent. Has anyone else noticed that on Netflix now, when you click the button pause, there's even an ad now on the pause screen? Just how insane is that? Because you know for a fact that that idea has come off the back of them probably sitting down, brainstorming, and them thinking, what tiny space or what tiny fraction of moment in time do they have spare where we could sell ads to them? I got it. The pause screen, the only moment of our lives where we've got nothing. Not anymore. Sorry, that's completely off topic. Let me digress. Sorry, instead of McDonald's or, KFC or Coke, for example, you wouldn't see any of that, but you see instead like political faces, the leaders or, military slogans about, what they'd be about. So I guess, saying that, it could be worse. I'd rather see a tasty, refreshing Coke Zero than, some dude's face all the time. Anyway, sorry, that got a bit out of hand. But on their guided tour throughout parts of the city, they were taken to a mall, they were taken to a pharmacy, but they were not allowed to see a supermarket, which kind of reminds you of the movie The Interview, like, show us your supermarkets. What are you hiding? Apparently, Luca said that they were really trying to show them all of the places that they were proud of, So they were very proud of their health sector after COVID, so they took them to the pharmacy. Maybe they're not so proud of the supermarket. Oh, and interestingly, at the mall, they still sold fake Western brands like Gucci and Polo and Nike, which I thought that was bizarre because it not only raises the question of like, how aware are North Koreans of the outside world if they're selling that? But then also, how are they allowed to sell that? Because I thought that this was the country that like banned blue jeans because they were seen as like too evil American. I don't even know if that's true, to be honest, but I've read it. Maybe it was just straight propaganda. I don't know. Might be one of those things we may never know. This is what their hotel room looked like. And man, Alex, zoom in on that bedside lamp because I'm sorry, why does your lamp need a giant sus-looking clock? I mean, I'm not gonna say that the room was bugged, but if I was in there, I wouldn't be speaking very freely. And Luca also said that when he looked out of his hotel room window at night, it was like completely pitch black. It's dark.
You look outside, like through your window, and everything is dark.
And this is despite the hotel being in Rason's city center, which kind of like matches up and stays consistent with the satellite images that we can see from above, where you look at the Korean peninsula and you have the south all lit up, and then the north, darkness. Pretty crazy. He also said that poverty was visible and that, yes, it was surprising that the tour guides didn't really try and hide it or, they weren't that touchy about it. And he said, like, you would see people like driving ox and carriage. I mean, do you drive ox and carriage? Do you ride ox and carriage? Drive ox and carriage. Ride ox. No, because ride sounds like you're on the ox. Okay, we saw people driving ox and carriage, whatever. But also he mentioned that despite how poor it was, the streets were completely like clean. They were like almost spotless, which you wouldn't expect. Because almost every other poor country that you would go to, one of like the hallmarks is like the streets. They don't have enough money to be able to fund cleaning all the streets. But there you go. Also, alcohol, surprisingly, is super popular there, and to the point where he said that when you would sit down at a restaurant, they would literally serve you beer instead of table water. And maybe that's just something that they do for, tourists, but that's pretty interesting. But not as interesting as this, because at one point they even took him to a school, right? And Luca managed to zoom in on what they were learning. And I've got to read you this. One portion read under the title, A Great Man, I think it was. There are many men recorded in human history. Kim Il-sung was the greatest man ever and made brilliant achievements of everlasting value for humanity. I mean, there's so many interesting points here. I mean, let's not even discuss the level of greatness. Let's move right on to the fact that, like, why is it English? There are, like, regular countries in Europe where it is kind of controversial for locals to speak English because they want to keep their native language strong. So I would have thought in North Korea, it would be like the devil's tongue. The devil's tongue. Oh, and another crazy part, they also got taken to, I don't know what you'd call it, like a show, a play. And you had all of these kids like singing and dancing and performing, doing all of these acrobats and things like that. And then at one point, you look at it and you've got all these kids, maybe they're like 6 years old, and then behind them, and you only clock this when you actually look at it, but you got missiles and they're like bombing ships. And it's like, this is a wild contrast. Overall, the News Daddy correspondent, Luca, said that the whole trip kind of felt like a bit of a school trip, The teachers, if you will, only took you to the places that they wanted to take you. They showed you what they wanted you to see. They tell you where you have your little organized lunch, etc. And while the things that they did do, similar to a school trip, they were fun, you don't get to see the kind of real North Korea as if, you were actually just walking around freely. And we all know that, that's kind of the expected things when you're going there. But one of the more unexpected things that he mentioned was there's this like mind-bending contrast where, despite the isolation, the restrictions, the propaganda, despite all of that, you can still be sat next to a North Korean that enjoys playing Clash of Clans and finds brain rot TikTok funny. Like, I don't know, humans, I guess, should always find a way to be kind of the same. We share that human trait no matter what. But, even though that sounds like a nice way to kind of end the video, the story doesn't end there. Because as I mentioned, not too long after Luca getting back, they shut the borders again. Like, damn. And some of the media, like Kyodo News, which is apparently Japan's leading news agency, is reporting that is Luca's fault. Because apparently he told Western media that the tour guides didn't try and hide the poverty. Now, firstly, I like to take myself out of the blame of all of that because I don't think they would describe me as Western media, you know? If anything, they would be like influencer, which is still not accurate, but that's probably what they would say. And secondly, I don't even know where they got that because North Korea themselves, they didn't give a reason for why they shut down the border. They just shut it down because they can. And also, Luca did interviews with other actual like media outlets. So if we're gonna blame anyone, let's blame him. I'm kidding. All right, no, we don't even need to blame Luca because there's another speculation which probably makes the most sense. Apparently, someone in the third group caught COVID, and as we mentioned at the beginning of the video, they're really still strict on COVID. So if they're still trying to like disinfect everyone's belongings and still wearing masks everywhere, then in the hierarchy of possibilities, I would imagine the COVID one is higher up there than a TikTok, you know? I mean, I doubt Kim's scrolling through TikTok anyway, so at least I hope not. But the truth is, we don't know for sure. Either way, though, it's goodbye again, North Korea. Same time next decade? Well, I mean, that's kind of like the most North Korea that we can get into without actually being there. Next time, and I'm still open to it, going to like Pyongyang, the actual capital at some point. But now that I keep on making more and more videos, it becomes increasingly dangerous. Gosh. But I'm still willing, you know? Subscribe, 1 million, and once I got my America visa sorted and we're all good, I'm still willing. I mean, it's on my bucket list. Whether I die or not, I've got to do it at some point. But ultimately, what do you guys think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. As always, I will see you for a full news roundup on Monday or Tuesday, depending on how crazy the world gets. Love ya. Bye! Good luck with that one, Alex. Woo! And version 2. Subscribe so we hit 1 million, and let's get cracking. Maybe the ass cheeks is... So maybe ass cheeks too far. So make sure you subscribe so we actually hit 1 million, and let's get cracking!